I'm gonna go ahead and get started because I invited the ones over on in Facebook where I'm at. I invited them to watch as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. It's called "They Went from There to There," and I put a video up let everyone know that I was going to be teaching on three women out of the Bible, but I added more to it. And I would suggest I'm going to suggest to stay on here and through the whole thing because all of this is going to come together at the end of the video. That's where you're going to find out what I'm preaching about and stuff. So you'll know a little bit as I go along, but you'll get the whole picture if you hold on and wait till the end. Okay. And besides, most of the time, y'all put up questions and stuff, and you don't stick around for me to answer. Because, like I explained, I can't teach and watch too because I try to, and I'm starting to get where I can actually answer people and stuff. I still don't allow people on here to go along with me if I'm teaching. Sorry, but I just don't. I'm not going to do that. If you want to talk to me or join me on my live, do it when I'm doing just a general one. So let me get started. Okay, they went from there to there. Now let's go to Genesis chapter 38. Oh, before we get started, I'm going to say because I won't be able to catch it. Any likes, roses, anything like that, I'm going to thank you before you do it ahead of time. And I thank everybody who is joining me and watching my live. So I'm going to do that now because I won't be able to catch it when you do it. So I'm going to do it ahead of time. All right, Genesis 38, verses 11 to 26. Then said Judah to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, remain a widow at thy father's house. Before I get into this, I give you a little bit of backstory so you understand. During this time, back then, if a woman's husband died and left no children behind, it was the husband's brother's responsibility to marry her. And the first child that is born to them was actually the dead brother's. So they lifted up a seed unto the dead brother. So that brother could, and somebody who actually is yours probably explain this a lot better than I'm doing. Legally, the child would have been the dead brother's. Biologically, it belonged to him, but legally, the brothers. So this is a backstory and why all of this in Tamar and Judah happened and why he said she was more righteous. So let me read this here. Then said Judah to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, remain a widow at thy father's house till Shelah, my son, be grown. For he said, lest peradventure he die also, as his brethren did. And Tamar went and dwelt in her father's house. And in process of time, the daughter of Shua, Judah's wife, died. And Judah was comforted, and went up into his sheep shearers to Timnath, he and his friend Hera the Adullamite. And it was told Tamar, saying, behold, thy father-in-law goeth up to Timnath to shear his sheep. And she put her widow's garments off from her, and covered her with a veil, and wrapped herself, and sat in an open place, which is by the way of Timnath. For she saw that Shelah was grown, and she was not given unto him to wife. And I guess, because she played the part of a harlot. So I guess covering your face back then with a veil was the way that you could tell a woman was a harlot back then. I'm not sure how they dressed or anything, but this is what. When Judah saw her, he thought her to be an harlot, because she had covered her face. And he turned unto her by the way, and said, go to, I pray thee, let me come in unto thee. For he knew not that she was his daughter-in-law. And she said, what wilt thou give me, that thou mayest come in unto me? And he said, I will send thee a kid from the flock. And she said, wilt thou give me a pledge till thou send it? And he said, what pledge shall I give thee? And she said, thy signet and thy bracelets, and thy staff that is in thine hand. And he gave it her, and came in unto her, and she conceived by him. And she arose and went away, and laid by her veil from her, and put on the garment of her widowhood. And Judah sent the kid by the hand of his friend the Adullamite to receive his pledge from the woman's hand, but he found her not. Then he asked the men of that place, saying, Where is the harlot that was openly by the wayside? And they said, There was no harlot in this place. And he returned to Judah and said, I cannot find her. And also the men of the place said that there was no harlot in this place. And Judah said, Let her take it to her, lest we be ashamed. Behold, I sent this kid, and thou hast not found her. And it came to pass about 3 months after, that it was told Judah, saying, Tamar thy daughter-in-law hath played the harlot, and also, behold, she is with child with whoredom, by whoredom. And Judah said, Bring her forth, and let her be burnt. Now listen to this. Now, what if that was like that in this day and time? What if, if you was shacked up, committing adultery, being a prostitute, committing fornication, all the sins, and somebody says, Bring them to me so I can burn them up, so I can burn them. And that was legal back then. She could have not went to the police. She couldn't have not went to a lawyer. She couldn't have went to the courthouse. She couldn't have went nothing and got herself protected, because it was actually legal for them to do you like that back then if they caught you in sins. When she was brought forth, she sent to her father-in-law, saying, By the man whose these are am I with child. And she said, Discern, I pray thee, whose are these? The signet, the bracelet, and staff. And Judas acknowledged him, and said, She hath been more righteous than I, because I gave her not to Shelah my son, and he knew her not again. Now here's the thing. She honestly wasn't even guilty of prostitution. The only thing she was guilty of was going to the extreme of doing what Judas should have done to begin with. See, she knew that legally she should have been gave to his son, and he should have raised a child by his son. There should have been raised a child to the dead husband. But Judah did not do that. So she went and took action herself and laid with her father-in-law so a seed could be brought up to her dead husband, which was legal. So her actions, without knowing the backstory, looked like she was sinning against God by being a prostitute, by committing adultery, by committing fornication. But the truth of it is, she was doing what was expected in that culture at that time. Now let's go to Joshua chapter 2, verses 1 through 24. Now see, all these women we'll talk about, has either, whether it's actually specifically said what they did or not, they have done things in their past, or doing things during the time, the sin and stuff. And here's the thing, this is up in this day too. And I'm going to say this out. God forgives sins. I don't care if your sin is just a simple thought. I don't care if your sin, I don't care whatever y'all think is that worst sin. I'm not sin against the Holy Ghost. But I'm talking about the ones where you can get forgiveness. He can forgive that too. All right, Joshua chapter 1, verses 1 through 24. And Joshua the son of Nun sent out of Shittim 2 men to spy secretly, saying, Go view the land, even Jericho. And they went and came into an harlot's house named Rahab, and lodged there. Now this is a harlot. For those of you who don't know, a harlot is a whore. It's a prostitute. That's what a harlot is. I don't know if there's anybody there that's kind of young and don't know these terms, but that's what it is. And it was told the king of Jericho, saying, Behold, there came men in hither tonight of the children of Israel to search out the country. And the king of Jericho sent unto Rahab, saying, Bring forth the men that are come to thee, which are entered into thine house, for they be come to search out all the country. And the woman took the 2 men and hid them, and said thus, There men, let's see, I think I skipped something. There came men unto me, but I wist not whence they were. Now listen to this. Now she let them come in, and she hid them. Now, the king there already knew that they were there to spy out the land so they could go back and tell people where the weakness was, what's going on, so they could destroy it. Now, if she had been caught, she was really putting herself in danger to hide these 2 spies and to protect them. So she was already showing signs by doing just that in faith in the Lord. Even though she was sinning, she had already showed signs of turning her heart to God and showing faith. And it came to pass about the time of shutting of the gate, when it was dark, that the men went out. Whither the men went, I wot not. Pursue after them quickly, for ye shall overtake them. But she had brought them up into the roof of the house, and hid them with the stalks of flax, which she had laid in order upon the roof. Let's go back up here where she said, Pursue after them quickly, for ye shall overtake them. Am I the only one to sound? Here's a little hint of sarcasm in that. But she knew that she had them up on her roof. She knew they were there. But she's telling them, pursue, and you'll find them. You'll get them. Isn't that something? Isn't that something they're already telling? She's already saying, go look for them. Go run. Get after them. Get your horse. Go fast as you can. You'll catch them. I hear a little sarcasm in that statement. Maybe it's just me. And the men pursued after them the way to Jordan after the fords. And as soon as they which pursued after them were gone out, they shut the gate. And before they were laid down, she came up unto them upon the roof. And she said unto the men, I know that the Lord hath given you the land, and that your terror is fallen upon us, and that all the inhabitants of the land faint because of you. See, this woman was smarter than the whole state of the place of Jericho. I don't know if the whole place of Jericho had repented before God, if they would have still been around. But see, that was one of the big things about nations being destroyed. They're destroyed because they try to drag the children of Israel into idolatry. And the Bible, we know by the Bible and by the Word of God, that God gives everybody a chance to repent. So I believe before Joshua got to the place where he was walking around those walls, I think before they got to the place where the 2 spies came to Rahab's house, I think before that God was giving this nation opportunity to repent. And like most nations that's been completely destroyed, they refused. See, there's not a nation that was destroyed that was not given opportunity to repent. That was not given opportunity to stop worshiping their idols. Every one of them had an opportunity, and they refused it. Let's get back to this. For we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you when ye came. Now I'm sorry about that. Now here's the thing, and get this. She's already a believer. I don't know where she heard. Now she heard all this stuff, but so did the other people. Why did it touch her heart to turn her heart into a believer and not the others? And see, here's the thing. You can't go by the lifestyle that person has and know if they believe in God or not. What you can do, though, is pray for that person, because if they already got that seed of belief, if they've already got that seed of faith planted in them, you water it by praying for them and by witnessing to them. Until God says it's no use, we should never give up on anybody. Now therefore I pray you, swear unto me by the Lord, since I have showed you kindness, that ye will also show kindness unto my father's house, and give me a true token, and that ye will save alive my father, and my mother, and my brethren, and my sisters, and all that they have, and deliver our lives from death. And the men answered her, Our life for yours, if ye utter not this our business. And it shall be, when the Lord hath given us the land, that we will deal kindly and truly with thee. Then she let them down by a cord through the window, for her house was upon the town wall, and she dwelt upon the wall. And she said unto them, Get you to the mountain, lest the pursuers meet you, and hide yourselves there 3 days until the pursuers be returned, and afterwards may ye go your way. And the men said unto her, We will be blameless of this thine oath which thou hast made us swear. They said, stick around, because I'm going to tell you something else. The 3 first women that I'm going to talk about, there's something in the New Testament that connects them all together. And if you stick around, you'll see. Behold, when we come into the land that shall bind this line of scarlet thread in the window, which thou didst let us down by, and thou shalt bring thy father and thy mother, and thy brethren and thy father's household home unto thee. And it shall be that whosoever shall go out of the door of thy house into the street, his blood shall be upon his head, and we will be guiltless. And whosoever shall be with thee in the house, his blood shall be on our head, if any hand be upon him. And if thou utter this our business, then we will be quite quit of thine oath, which thou hast made us to swear. And she said, According unto your words, so be it. And she sent them away, and they departed, and she found the scarlet line in the window. Now see, she did what they asked, and you'll see, also stood by their promise. Now we're going to Joshua chapter 6, verses 22 to 25. But Joshua had said unto the 2 men that had spied out the country, Go into the harlot's house, and bring out thence the woman, and all that she hath, as ye swear unto her. And the young men that were spies went in, and brought out Rahab, and her father, and her mother, and her brethren, and all that she had. And they brought out all her kindred, and left them without the camp of Israel. And they burned the city with fire, and all that was therein, only the silver and the gold and the vessels of brass and of iron, they put into treasury of the house of the Lord. And Joshua saved Rahab the harlot alive, and her father's household, and all that she had, and she dwelt in Israel even unto this day, because she hid the messengers which Joshua sent to spy out Jericho. Now see, they saved her alive because, number one, she helped them. She did as she was told to do. She sat there and she put the cord down. She got her family into the house. She pretty well hid the spies, actually protecting them from being caught. So her having her being in a business of ill repute and considered a sin against God, she still showed kindness and mercy to others. And that's a big attribute of a godly person. Now let's go to Second Samuel, verses 11, 2 to 4. And it came to pass in an eventide that David rose from off his bed and walked upon the roof of the king's house. And from the roof he saw a woman washing herself, and the woman was very beautiful to look upon. And David sent and inquired after the woman. And one said, Is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite? And David sent messengers and took her, and she came in unto him, and he lay with her, for she was purified from her uncleanness, and she returned unto her house. Now, we know this story. What we don't know about this story is, why did David not turn away from temptation? And why did Bathsheba not choose to decline the invitation that David made? Now, see, I don't know that, and I don't think anybody else can. We can jump to all kinds of conclusions, but unless they were there or heard it straight from the horse's mouth, we don't really know. Or hear it from an eyewitness, and we certainly cannot hear that. But the thing about it is, she committed adultery along with David. But we know by the story that God had turned this to glorify his name. We know this, and we know that he turned it to keep a heir on the throne of David. We know this. So even though they committed adultery, and we both know they were punished. See, David was not the only one punished by that baby dying. She was too. She was also punished because that was her child. That came out of her womb. A mother who loses her child, that's like getting your heart ripped out. So David was not the only one who was punished for adultery. So was she. But still, God turned it for his own good, for his glory. Now let's go to, and yes, so we do know that David repented. So even though it doesn't say it in the Bible, since Bathsheba was part of that blessing, part of the sin against God, and part of the blessing that kind of happens afterwards, we have to assume that she also repented of that sin. Now let's go to Luke chapter 7. Now I was going to do just 3 of them, those first 3 I just did. And I said, wait a minute, there's more women in there that actually in the Bible has been vessels of dishonor and turned to vessels in there. And they tell us a great story. You know, if you really listen to even the smallest stories, one of the best stories, I believe, is the widow and the widow's mite. Not a very big story, but it really has an impact. It says that she was more blessed. Now, God never said that she became rich after that. He never said that she went home and there was a gold mine sitting right there waiting for her. What he said was she was more blessed. She was blessed because she had more faith in God than they did. See, it doesn't take a whole lot of faith to add to the offering basket when you have a lot of excess, or there's a lot of extra money coming in that you can get in. That's what takes a lot of faith, is when you have little next to nothing, and you still put that money in that offering basket, not knowing if you're going to be able to fix yourself something to eat or your family something to eat. Just trusting God will supply. That's where she was blessed. She was blessed in faith in God as to where they had faith in their money. Let's see. Luke 7, verses 37 to 50. And behold, a woman in the city, which was a sinner, when she knew that Jesus sat at meat in the Pharisee's house, brought an alabaster box of ointment, and stood at his feet behind him weeping, and began to wash his feet with tears, and did wipe them with the hairs of her head, and kissed his feet, and anointed them with the ointment. Now when the Pharisee which had hidden him saw it, he spake within himself, saying, This man, if he were a prophet, would have known who and what manner of woman this is that touches him, for she is a sinner. Do you see how the Pharisee, his attitude towards her? His attitude was, she's a sinner. She was looking at her sins. He was judging her by her sins. And Jesus answered, said unto him, Simon, I have somewhat to say unto thee. And he said, Master, say on. There was a certain creditor which had 2 debtors. The one owed 500 pence, and the other 50. And when they had nothing to pay, he frankly forgave them both. Tell me therefore, which of them will love him most? Simon answered and said, I suppose that he to whom he forgave most. And he said unto him, Thou hast rightly judged. And he turned to the woman, and said unto Simon, Seest thou this woman? I entered into thine house. Thou gavest me no water for my feet, and she hath washed my feet with tears, and wiped them with the hairs of her head. Now, I've heard, every time somebody preached this, that's been preaching for a while, always says that it was tradition, a way of showing kindness to your guests, to wash their feet, because usually people had sandals back then, and they walked the roads, and roads weren't paved, they were dirt roads, and they got dirty. So that was a way to show, like, we would come in and offer somebody a glass of water or something to eat or something to drink, or a place to sit. We would do something like that. And here, that's how they showed kindness to their guests in their culture back then. Thou gavest me no kiss, but this woman since the time I came in, hath not ceased to kiss my feet. My head with oil thou didst not anoint, but this woman hath anointed my feet with ointment. Wherefore I say unto thee, her sins which are many. Let me stop right there for a minute. See, the Pharisee was looking at her sin and judging her by that. God, Jesus, was looking at her repentance, her repentant heart, and judging by that. See, we can't judge because we can't always see what's in somebody's heart. Can we judge the sin? I believe that a righteous judgment is you judging the sin, not the sinner. See, we can judge a righteous judgment. In order to do that, first we have to know the word. Second, we have to judge according to the word. 3, we have to judge the sin that would be dragging them down into the pits of hell, and not the sinner, because the sinner can and sometimes do repent. See, I can't tell you because you're sinning, whatever sinning, you're going to hell. I can tell you, I can tell you that if you do not stop that sin, it can drag you to hell. But I cannot tell you you definitely will go to hell, because that's not my place. See, righteous judgment isn't condemning, but it should convict. Whereby I say unto you, her sins which are many are forgiven. For she loved much, but to whom little is forgiven, the same loveth little. And he said unto her, Thy sins are forgiven. And they that sat at meat with him began to say within themselves, Who is this that forgiveth sins also? And he said to the woman, Thy faith hath saved thee, go in peace. See, I said it earlier, Jesus can save. He can redeem anyone. If they are repentant, if they seek that forgiveness, they can. What nobody, especially another Christian or a Christian, should ever do is try to block that person from that forgiveness. Try to block that person from seeking and from repenting by making that person feel like they have no hope. Because guess what? The devil is at them after that. Enough. We don't need to do it. Now let's go to John chapter 4. Verses 6 through 29. Now Jacob's well was there. Jesus therefore, being wearied with his journey, sat thus on the well, and it was about the 6th hour. There cometh a woman of Samaria to draw water. Jesus said unto her, Give me to drink. For his disciples were gone away unto the city to buy meat. Then said the woman of Samaria unto him, How is it that thou, being a Jew, askest drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria? For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. Jesus answered and said unto her, If thou knewest the gift of God, and who it is that saith to thee, Give me to drink, thou wouldest have asked of him, and he would have given thee living water. Okay. The woman saith unto him, Sir, thou hast nothing to draw. Okay, I'm going to answer the question of the person that said I should be quiet in the church. I'm on TikTok. I'm not in church. The woman saith unto him, Sir, thou hast nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. From whence then hast thou that living water? Art thou greater than our father Jacob, which gave us the well, and drank thereof himself and his children and his cattle? Jesus answered and said unto her, Whosoever drinketh of this water shall thirst again, and whosoever drinketh of the water, and I shall give him, shall never thirst, but the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water springing up into everlasting life. The woman said unto him, Sir, give me this water, that I thirst not, neither come hither to draw. Jesus said unto her, Go call thy husband and come hither. The woman answered and said, I have no husband. Jesus said unto her, Thou hast well said, I have no husband. For thou hast had 5 husbands, and he whom thou now hast is not thy husband. In that sayest thou truly. The woman saith unto him, Sir, I perceive that thou art a prophet. Our fathers worshipped in this mountain, and ye say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. Jesus said unto her, Woman, believe me, the hour cometh when ye shall neither in this mountain nor yet at Jerusalem worship the Father. Ye worship ye know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. But the hour cometh, and now is when the true worshippers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father seeketh such to worship him. God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. The woman saith unto him, I know that Messiah cometh, which is called Christ. When he is come, he will tell us all things. Jesus said unto her, I that speak unto thee am he. And upon this came his disciples and marveled that he talked with the woman. Yet no man said, What seekest thou? Or why talkest thou with her? The woman then left her water pot and went her way into the city, and saith to the men, Come, see a man which told me all things that ever I did. Is not this the Christ? Now I want you to go up to, let's see, where is it? Now go up to verse 10, where he was offering her, is sitting there and telling her, give me to drink. That would have asked him, and he would have given thee living water. He was offering her salvation right there. Now, he knew that she had 5 husbands and she was shacking up with one right now. He knows that. He knew that. And though he already knew all this, he was still offering her salvation. Like, he knows all the filth we are, all the filth we have. He knows every filthy sin we've ever done. He knows every lie we've ever told. He knows every wrong word we ever said. He knows every condemnation that we've done against people. He knows every unrighteous judgmental thing we've ever done. You name it, whatever sin it is, he knows if you've done it. He knows your thoughts. It says that the heart is wicked. Who knows it? That means you don't even know every part of your own heart, but he does. So there's nothing that would shock him about us. There is nothing, absolutely nothing, that he does not know about us, and still yet He still loved us enough to go on the cross. Still yet, he's still pursuing us today. Still yet, he still wants us to turn our hearts towards him. And he wants more than anything salvation for us so we can have a relationship with him and spend eternity with him. But he loves us also enough to let us make that choice. It breaks his heart. But he knows that love that's forced is not true love at all. Now let's go to John chapter 8. Verses 3 through 11. Now, this got 3 through 11. This is when a woman was caught in adultery. The first question I got is, where was the man? Where was the man in all this that she was committing adultery with? You can't commit adultery by yourself. Now, see, I read this story over and over again, and every time I read it, what I see is a setup. And I think Jesus seen that too. He knew that they was bringing that woman in, accusing her of adultery, but never brought the man. And since in the Old Testament, when it was set that they are to be stoned for committing adultery, that was supposed to be the woman and the man both. The woman was not the only one who was supposed to be punished for adultery. And here, they're only bringing one, and that's that woman. As if though the man did not sin against God when he committed adultery. And the fact of it is, God knew everybody's heart there, including that woman's heart. And that woman, he also knew that the laws that God set, even though they sound harsh to our society today, they were still fair. God did not single out women and punish them because of a sin they committed. If it was a sin between two people, a male and a female, both were to be punished. So they were wrong here from the get-go. Then we'll read it. Okay. And the scribes and Pharisees brought unto him a woman taken in adultery. And when they had set her in the midst, they say unto him, Master, this woman was taken in adultery in the very act. Now Moses is the law commanded. Oh, by the way, stick around, because after I read this, there's one more part I need to read, and that's where I'm going to show you what I was getting at from the word go. Now Moses in the law commanded us that such should be stoned. But what sayest thou? This they said, tempting him, that he might have to accuse him. But Jesus stooped down and with his fingers wrote on the ground, as though he heard them not. Anybody ever wonder what Jesus wrote writing? I don't know. Oh, I don't know what he's writing, but he was sitting there and he didn't care what they were saying. He knew what the truth was, what didn't he? And he knew they were trying to play him. So when they continued asking him, he lifted up himself and said unto them, He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her. And again he stooped down and wrote on the ground. And they which heard it, being convicted by their own conscience, went out one by one, beginning at the eldest, even unto the last, and Jesus was left alone, and the woman standing in the midst. When Jesus had lifted up himself, and saw none but the woman, he said unto her, Woman, where are those thine accusers? Hath no man condemned thee? She said, No man, Lord. And Jesus said unto her, Neither do I condemn thee. Go and sin no more. See, he didn't let her go and say, Okay, I don't condemn you, so go ahead and continue. No, he says, no, sin no more. But he wasn't saying it to condemn her, but to help her be freed from that sin. Now, here is the whole point of this whole live video. I want you to go to Matthew chapter 1. Now, I'm not going to read the whole chapter. I'm just going to take some parts of it. But I'm going to tell you the first three women. All right, let me read it to you. All right, let's go to verse 3. And Judas begat Phares and Zerah of Thamar, And Phares begat Ezrom, and Ezrom begat Aram. Now we're going to pay attention to Judas begat Phares and Zerah of Tamar. Now that was Judah and Tamar in the Old Testament. See, she played the harlot to do what was right. Now, could there have been another way for her to handle that? Maybe. But we don't know if she felt like that was the only way to do it. We don't know what was in her heart or in her mind, but God did. And so a woman who was not a harlot, but had to play a harlot to get things done the way it should be done, ended up in the genealogy of Jesus. Now let's go to Okay, I've lost it. Verse 5. And Salmon begat Boaz, or Salmon begat Boaz, that's Boaz. You know Boaz and Ruth, of Rechab. Now Rechab is another variation of the word Rahab. If you have a Strong's, go to the Strong's and look it up, and you'll see that Rahab and Rechab is the same person. And Boaz begat Obed of Ruth, and Obed begat Jesse. So Rahab, somebody who actually is a harlot, she was a prostitute. Guess what? That prostitute ended up in the genealogy of Jesus. Now let's go to verse 6. And Jesse begat David the king, and David the king begat Solomon of her that had been the wife of Urias. Now that's Uriah, and his wife was Bathsheba. So an adulteress ended up in the genealogy of Jesus. What is my point to all of this? Because of their faith, because of God-given mercy, God-given grace, because of God's forgiveness, these three women who started off as vessels of dishonor ended up in the genealogy of the King of Kings, of the Lord of Lords, of the Messiah, and became vessels of honor. So if somebody has told you that there's no hope for you, if somebody has told you that you cannot get saved or sanctified because of what you did, if somebody tells you because of what you said, because of what you did, you can't get saved, don't listen to them. Because if you are still feeling pulled by the Holy Ghost, you're being convicted. And a reprobated mind cannot be convicted. You still have the possibility of becoming a dishonorable vessel. Let me say that again, because you still have the opportunity to become an honorable vessel unto the Lord. You ain't that dirty that he can't clean you up. Okay, I'm finished right now, so I'm going to stop. I thank everybody, and thank everybody for joining. Okay, I can't thank nobody for all this. It's a good thing I thanked it before I started. Okay.